Intellectuals, the podcast where we discuss social, political, and religious issues affecting South Asia with a special focus on Pakistan. I'm your co-host, Zara.
And I'm Bilal. Today we are diving into the deeply troubling issue of forced conversions in Pakistan.
It is widely believed that forced conversions are only limited to Hindus, but Christians are also not immune to this.
In Pakistan, the forced conversions of religious minorities, particularly young girls from Hindu, Christian, and Sikh communities, is a significant human rights issue. Each year, hundreds of girls are abducted, coerced into converting to Islam, and often married off to their abductors.
This practice has been described as a human rights catastrophe by various human rights organizations. The All-Party Parliamentary Group for Pakistani Minorities reported that around 1,000 girls between the ages of 12 and 25 are forcibly converted each year. These conversions are often accompanied by threats, violence, and systemic discrimination.
And Kamar Rafiq, in his LSE blog, said, "The situation for religious minorities in Pakistan is dire. The government has been unsuccessful in implementing the Child Marriage Restraint Act 1929 and the Sindh Child Marriage Restraint Act 2013, which raised the legal minimum age of marriage to 18 in Sindh province. Regrettably, these laws have not been implemented properly in Sindh and other provinces of Pakistan."
And the reasons behind these forced conversions are complex, of course. Some are driven by religious zeal, while others are motivated by economic incentives and societal pressures. In many cases, young girls are seen as commodities in a deeply patriarchal society, and the children are seen as easy targets.
The international community, though, has called on Pakistan to take stronger measures to protect religious minorities. हमेशा UN की ज़रूरत पड़ती है. The United Nations has urged the Pakistani government to criminalize forced conversions and ensure the safety and rights of minority women.
And according to a Voice of America article, VOA, nearly 1,000 girls from religious minorities are forced to convert to Islam in Pakistan each year. And actually, this is pretty similar to the annual total of women who are victims of honor killings as well.
Okay.
And so, yes, so this is largely to pave the way for marriages that are under the legal age and non-consensual. The article also highlights the story of Neha, who was a 14-year-old Christian girl who was forcibly converted and married to a 45-year-old man. And her story is a stark reminder of the human cost of these forced conversions.
The same article also mentions that the practice has accelerated during lockdowns against the coronavirus. When girls are out of school and more visible, bride traffickers are more active on the internet, and families are more in debt. This has made young girls even more vulnerable to abduction and forced conversion.
And this actually, just hearing bride traffickers, like this reminds me of that, 2019 case of almost 700 Pakistani Christian women who were essentially trafficked as brides to Chinese men that they believed were like wealthy businessmen, but they turned out to, be like poor Chinese men. And they were essentially sold to them for a very low price and trafficked. And that, I think, came out in 2019. So it was prior to coronavirus, but, I imagine that must have also escalated during the pandemic.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's another case. So a New York Times article highlighted the case of Mehek Kumari, who was a 14-year-old Hindu girl abducted and forced to convert to Islam. And Mehek's case drew significant attention and sparked protests from the Hindu community. And the article also mentions that many of these conversions are facilitated by local clerics, so Mia Mittu, and are often supported by powerful political and religious figures. However, within the Hindu community as well are patriarchal and oppressive structures that perpetuate this oppression, because, of course, there's a myriad of oppressions in the situation, one being the fact that these women are Hindu, and the second being that, as reported, this mostly occurs to Dalit Hindu women. So, the casteism is and patriarchy is sort of like a double oppression. And so in terms of the patriarchal structures, essentially what has been revealed in a report by Jürgen Schaflechner, who is an academic and focuses a lot on religious minorities in Pakistan, is that in order to avoid humiliation and public embarrassment, while focusing on women's agency, a lot of women would choose to elope and marry a man of their choice. And that man may be from a different religion. He may be Muslim. But that is the woman's choosing. And in order to avoid this public shame and humiliation, her family or the Hindu community will go on to say that she has been forcibly abducted when in fact she was exercising her agency. And I think that this is a pretty interesting point to focus on as well.
Actually, अगर हम थोड़ी देर के लिए सच बोलें तो मेरे ख्याल में जो एक्चुअल पोजीशन ऑफ फोर्स कन्वर्जन या जो ग्राउंड रियलिटीज़ हैं बंदा उसको ज़रूर देखे. मैं ये नहीं कहती कि फोर्स कन्वर्जन है ही नहीं, फोर्स कन्वर्जन है, लेकिन जिस तरह इन थोड़े सालों में मीडिया ने जब से हमें इम्पोर्टेंस देना शुरू की तो हमने इसको जो विलिंगली जा रहे हैं लोग कन्वर्जन के लिए, हमने उसको भी फोर्स कन्वर्जन कर दिया. तो देयर इज़ डिफरेंस. एक होता है आपकी फ्री विल, एक होती है फोर्स कन्वर्जन. फोर्स कन्वर्जन है, इसकी ग्राउंड रियलिटी है, लेकिन जिस तरह इस चीज़ को पॉलिटिसाइज किया जाता है सिर्फ इस ताने से बचने के लिए कि अगर हमारी लड़की या हमारा लड़का अगर वो मुसलमान होता है या दूसरे किसी रिलीजन में जाता है तो हम ताना देते हैं कि आपका बेटा मुसलमान हो गया, आपकी बेटी मुसलमान हो गई. इसीलिए हम उस चीज़ से बचने के लिए फोर्स कन्वर्जन को फोर्स का नाम दे देते हैं. कन्वर्जन होती है लेकिन हम उसे तड़का लगाते हैं फोर्स का. अब आते हैं उन इलाकों पे जहाँ पर बिल्कुल फोर्स कन्वर्जन है और जहाँ पर ये चीज़ें डे बाय डे इंक्रीज़ होती जा रही हैं. जब से मैं कहूँगी कि ये लोगों में जो अवेयरनेस आनी शुरू हुई है, थोड़ा मजहबी जुनूनियत हमारे यहाँ बढ़ती गई है, वो ऐसे नहीं है कि सिर्फ इस्लाम में हुई है, वो हमारे यहाँ भी हुई है.
The article also mentions the legal system in Pakistan, which often fails to protect these young girls. Many families are too afraid to report the abductions, and those who do often face significant legal and social hurdles. The courts frequently side with the abductors, claiming that the conversions and the marriages were consensual. Scholar Jürgen Schaflechner examined the case of Chandavati, a woman and mother of 2 daughters from the Khodki region in northern Sindh. Her case is one of the rare documented instances where a Hindu woman returned to her family following an alleged abduction.
कानून ऐसा नहीं बोझल जाता है. देखो मेरी यही बात है, अपील है. मैं घोटकी का हूँ, कोलाची हूँ. उसके एंटरमेंट के अंदर बच्ची ने बयान करे, ऐसा जुल्म करना नहीं चाहिए. उसको सजा के हक होना चाहिए. कोर्ट में उसको उसी कटवारे पे उसको सजा होनी चाहिए.
Chandavati's account provides a valuable and uncommon first-hand perspective on cases of forced conversion and marriage, and sheds light on the connection between the disappearance of Hindu girls and human trafficking in Sindh.
And to further understand the gravity of the situation, let's dive deeper into the stories of some of these girls. So let's take the case of Arzoo Raja, who was a 13-year-old Christian girl and was abducted from her home in Karachi. Her parents were devastated when they found out that she had been forcibly converted to Islam and married to a 44-year-old man. And despite her parents' pleas, the court initially ruled in favor of the abductor, stating that the marriage was valid under Islamic law. It was only after significant public outcry and intervention from human rights organizations that the court ordered her to be placed in a shelter home.
Well, yeah, this is where, the idea of SHO also being, it's like that, not even allowing the case to go up like as much as to DIGs or IGs or SSPs,
And why is that?
because just the SHOs just personally themselves, they blame it on like not girl, but they just say that, yeah, it's like legal that they accepted
Right.
Islam and this is a good thing, and
Right.
whatever, because they themselves are entrenched in this idea, I guess. Yeah, this kind of policy, like, this kind of Islamization that has been sort of forced into
Right.
people. And another heart-wrenching story is that of Rinkle Kumari, a Hindu girl from Sindh province. She was abducted, forcibly converted, and married off to a Muslim man. Her case gained international attention when she tearfully pleaded in court to be returned to her family. However, the court ruled in favor of her abductor, citing her conversion and marriage as voluntary.
Wow.
Wrinkle's case highlights the systematic failures in the legal system that often leave these young girls with no recourse. So, I'm talking about SHO, and this guy is a court judge
like,
who's also like
on the side of the abductors. And
yeah, like he's just sort of like that's how his system is, like systematic, like it's like it's how their psyche is, like they're just part of that system thing. Yeah. Mm. So even though Wrinkle's case gained significant public attention, it is not completely clear why and how Wrinkle disappeared. Wrinkle gave a few public statements. These, however, were alternately interpreted as coerced by her kidnappers or pressured by her family. Even though Wrinkle talked publicly, her words had no impact on the male-dominated public discussion. Hindu women who are abducted and forcibly converted have rarely been given the space to speak or exercise their own agency. Instead, society speaks for them.
right, exactly. Just like, जैसे वो judge
Yeah,
करते हैं, right? The judge is judging
judging,
the
yeah.
situation based on his own, I mean, it's biased then, right?
Biased, of
Because
course.
he's thinking from his own religious ideology rather
Mhm.
than actually thinking about the well-being of the girls to whom this,
These things happen.
this atrocity, like,
Yeah. And on the other hand, social workers, again in Sindh, have addressed that there are Hindu women who also choose to leave their homes with their abductors, which is another way in which Sindhi Hindu women's agency is ignored.
that's
So
a
this
great
is like,
point.
yeah. So
The fact that they might choose
choose to do it.
to do it because maybe, I mean, of course, like, I'm sure a lot of Hindus have chosen to be
Mhm.
Muslim because perhaps they already understood the culture, the norms, the values, the
Yeah.
khana. I don't know, like, maybe they were already comfortable with eating meat. And I'm just, kind of
Mm.
like just thinking about
Just
it
thinking
here.
about why this happens.
Yeah, like maybe they
It's a
think that
social thing, right? They want to
exactly.
get into.
And it's definitely a way for a lot of people to be in a better place in society, unfortunately.
Yep, for sure.
And so these stories are obviously not isolated incidents.
Mhm.
They are part of a larger pattern of abuse and discrimination against religious minorities in Pakistan. The squeezed white part. And the
It's
society
squeezing, still squeezing.
still squeezing, right?
Yeah.
Very tightly,
Very tight.
unfortunately. And, I just wanted to mention another thing is that, like social pressures and economic incentives that drive these forced conversions are deeply rooted in the country's patriarchal and feudal systems. And another important point that I wanted to just add right now is that of, the function of the blasphemy law, right? I believe, it is relevant to the topic of forced conversions. But just the fact that capital punishment still exists in Pakistan,
Right.
I truly believe is just, my personal opinion is I'm anti-death penalty.
Okay.
And I just think that the blasphemy law is, we know that the blasphemy law is so abused and it is used to, to kind of take badla or like a form of intikam in the villages and stuff, right? Like jo Asya Bibi ke saath hua tha, and like
Yeah.
a lot of other people, just that's the case, obviously, that sticks out in the front of my mind. But perhaps this can be dived into later, but the blasphemy law is also like definitely a point of contention for the, tightly squeezed white part.
Yeah, of course. You can
Yeah.
just like label someone as like, इसने रिसालत की बंदा मुंह से रिसालत के नाम पे जो है
बिल्कुल.
उसको आप कह सकते हो फतवा जारी हो सकता है, and then you can take them or take him or her, whoever, to the
Like Phansi, like
Phansi, or even people just kill them on the road,
true.
right? Like they
Yeah.
just mob lynch them or whatever,
Right.
and that was just like
I mean, और ये आइडियोलॉजी भी है ना, जो देखो जो क्या नाम था उसका, मुमताज कादरी जो सलमान तासीर का
yeah,
part था.
Mumtaz Qadri, yeah.
Yeah, like he was celebrated
was
by mullahs. Like,
Yeah, his funeral was like, it's like almost as big as like, I don't know, Benazir or something. It's like
wild, man.
yeah.
That's wild, man. Yeah. And I mean, also, if you look in many rural areas as well, like, young girls, particularly, since let's go back to the topic of forced conversions, but young
Right.
girls are seen as, commodities, which is, like, they're not even like people, right? Their humanity is stripped from the insaniyat. It's like, wo bhejte hain unko. This idea of like just buying and selling, like, humans as property, right? So yeah, and commodities that can be traded or sold to settle debts or gain favor with powerful local figures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like there's this Punjabi proverb, Zanzar Zameen.
right.
I don't remember jo shuru mein Punjabi mein kya kehte hain, I forgot. But it's basically Zanzar Zameen, and in English it translates to 3 things for which we kill: women, gold, land.
Zevrat or Zameen.
Yeah.
Zar. Okay, cool. So the role of local clerics and religious leaders in facilitating these conversions cannot be overlooked, though. In many cases, they provide religious justification for the abductions and marriages, often with the support of powerful political figures. This creates an environment where the perpetrators feel emboldened and protected from legal repercussions.
आप यकीन करें, मुझे अब जैसे अपनी बेटियां शायद उनसे भी ज़्यादा प्यारी है। जब वो मुसलमान हुई थी, कोर्ट में उसने बयान दिए तो मेरे आंखों से आंसू आ गए, क्योंकि मुसलमान है। हमने क्या करना है, क्या लेना है, क्या देना है? सबसे ज़्यादा है कि हमारा दीन, हमारा इस्लाम, हमारी वो चीज़ है। हमने उन बच्चों से क्या लेना है? बज़ाहिर तो हम उनसे कुछ नहीं ले सकते, लेकिन आगे जाके इसका बहुत सिला हमें मिलेगा। यहाँ पर नहीं कहना चाहिए, लेकिन हमने इनके ऊपर बहुत खर्चा किया है। बहुत बड़ा वकील पीरज़ादा है, वो किया, और वकील किए जो कि टॉप के वकील थे, वो किए। क्या समझते हैं उसमें खर्चा नहीं होगा? वो खैरात में थोड़े आते हैं वकील। और हमें खुशी है कि हमने जो पैसा खर्च किया है वो हमारा सही जगह पे गया है, ज़ाय नहीं हुआ। सही जगह इस पे कि इस्लाम पे खर्चा किया ना। हमारा दीन जब इस्लाम है, मोहब्बत इस्लाम के साथ है, क्या हमें बड़ी खुशी होती है उसमें।
Right. So going more deeper into the systemic kind of, how the system is formed. I mean, of course, हमें पता है, like not riyasat, sorry, क्या कह रही हूँ? Rishwat and sifarish.
Right.
Yeah. And just, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, most of the things that happen is like, yeah, lower class Hindu women, like that's, I mean,
Mhm.
like girls, that's that happening to mostly like that.
Yeah, the
I
forced
don't think the
conversions, but
forced
the
conversions.
trafficking still occurs. Like Punjab में Christian औरतों के साथ बहुत होता है. Like जैसे गले
Yeah,
में कह रही थी जो Chinese quote unquote
yeah,
businessmen. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
But no, the concept of forced conversions is like while it happens elsewhere, it is very concentrated in Sindh, right?
Yes, for
And
sure.
I think we were looking at some numbers. It occurs mostly in, do you remember, was it Mirpur Khas or Dardu or something?
I think Ghotki, you
Ghotki, right.
said? Yes, I think so.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like, I mean, I'm just kind of trying to think of it from a theoretical perspective. But, what do you think about the fact that, I mean, I think it makes sense that, yeah, a lot of these Muslim clerics or men like who are doing this, who are abducting and forcibly converting the girls, they believe that they're like quote unquote true Muslims or doing God's work.
No, I don't think that's what they're
Okay.
doing. They're mostly doing because, I mean, yeah, maybe they like the person or like, I don't, somewhere in the mind they would have that, but
Mm-hmm.
like at the end of the day, there are people who are just preying on like girls.
Right.
Why doesn't happen? I mean, it might have happened. One case was that there was like guys being forced to like, for like, why doesn't happen
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
like, guys? Why
Oh
does
yeah,
it
of
only
course.
happen to
They're
girls?
predators. No,
Like,
no,
yeah.
they're 100% predators. But I guess I was just curious to know your thoughts on whether any of it is fueled by this.
I mean, that could be fuel like afterwards because they also know that they can get away with it by saying this too, right?
Mhm.
That, yeah, we're doing God's work.
Mhm.
Like, we're getting them converted and they're just like whatever, yeah. And then the clerics fall for it, like everyone falls for it, right? So, I mean, but I don't think that, like, I know, like, you're trying to, like, I don't think in their mind they have that, like, the
Right.
first thing, that's not the first thing that they're thinking. I don't think.
Right. That's
Yeah.
kind of like what they're saying to others, portraying to
Yeah,
others to
yeah, yeah.
seem like the quote unquote good guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. To
Okay.
like get away with it or like, like just to say that, yeah, man, I have done something good and there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong in it, just to say that.
Right.
And
That
I mean,
makes
who
sense.
knows? Someone would be like in their mind, yes, like literally they're thinking that this is, something God's work and then don't even know like that they're doing something wrong.
Right.
I mean, that could totally be true. Like that could definitely happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah.
That is so
Yeah.
scary, actually, to think that. But wow.
Yeah. So, a political leader from Sindh, GM Sayed, delivered an awe-inspiring speech at the Vienna International Press Peace Conference in 1952, 5 years after partition. He despised American and British efforts to unite Muslims based on their faith, which he felt could have cataclysmic outcome. He warned them that persisting such ideology would promote religious extremism and fascism. I don't know why did we choose to leave that here. This. I
Yeah.
mean, this is more like, but like I guess it makes sense for him at that point, but
I mean,
it's just
as like he was a Sindhi nationalist, right?
yeah,
GM Sayed, yeah. So I think it makes sense in that, like, getting to the root of why this is happening today.
right,
You can maybe, trace like, but maybe this point is relevant, like, his speech that he gave, right? Is
right,
because to trace it back to what's going on today, you can see that it can be traced to partition, of course, to like partition ke time par. It's basically like it's just a long repeated history of the violence that occurred during partition. वही हो रहा
right.
है जो वही सिंध में हो रहा है और जो इंडिया में हो रहा है मुसलमानों के साथ, like it's the same thing going on and on and on for more than 75 years.
Right.
It's almost like, again, just to get a little theoretical about it, जब बंदा, I guess, the trauma hota hai banda ko, right?
Right.
There's this thing called an amnesiac state.
Okay.
So you kind of almost forget, as a coping mechanism, you forget the trauma. And, the state does that as well. The state goes through this horrific trauma and
Yeah.
it forgets it, right?
Okay.
Jaise humne in our last episode, double forgetting, Michael Billig.
Right.
The idea of double forgetting, that the state forgets its violence, and jo Bangladesh ke saath hua.
Right.
Pakistan has never formally apologized for what happened.
No. They don't even accept it. Like
Exactly. And so it's like jo aaj ke log hain, they're not.
like they honestly don't accept it. They still think
I
people
know.
still think that some
It's
sazish has happened.
exactly. It's
And just-
yeah, like this is a lie, like तुम लोग झूठ बोल रहे हो. Like
Yeah.
एक दफा मैंने Instagram पे पोस्ट की थी जो बांग्लादेशी हिंदू औरतें, like उनकी एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री है, तो I posted about that, and
Right.
I got these such like ludicrous comments, honestly, just like very, honestly, like this is what I would refer to as jahil. Like,
Okay.
it was just kind of like, oh, ye jhoot bol rahi hain, like, just saying like these are lies, these are made up, this is propaganda, none of this happened. Like, and these women are literally talking about how West Pakistani soldiers, like, like murdered their babies and like,
Right.
other things, like, very horrific acts of violence that I'm not going to repeat, but it was just to see those comments, saying like, this is a lie, this is propaganda, they're just trying to make Pakistan look bad. And
Right.
it's just terrifying. It terrifies me, I guess. And yeah, I think that, like this crime of forced conversions is kind of like this repetition of this trauma.
Right.
It's like, I just don't, it's kind of like repeating jo partition, ke taur mein ho raha tha, like
Yeah,
during
yeah.
that time. So,
Mhm. Yeah, and they don't consider it as wrong.
mhm,
They're people just doing it because they think they're doing something right
mhm.
for the country.
Yeah, violent religious nationalism.
Right relation. That's interesting.
Yeah. And, the international community has been vocal in its condemnation of these practices, thank God. The United Nations, oh wow, bloody UN. The European Union and various human rights organizations have called on the Pakistani government to take stronger measures. Sorry.
Mayors. I mean, it's
To-
the same people that just imposed partition on us, and they're expecting
Exactly.
us to do better. But it's okay. We are better.
Exactly. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's just, all of this stuff is so arbitrary and useless. I mean, dekho jo Palestine mein abhi tak jo chal raha hai, like all these, I don't know, none of this stuff is revolutionary, And, of course, progress has been slow because, again, none of this stuff is revolutionary. And, what shits does the Pakistani government give? Let's be honest. And, of course, it's not absurd to, believe that the government has turned a blind eye to these atrocities because, I mean, some things have progressed. I believe they passed a bill, right? We will dive into that in a bit. But there was an act, Forced Conversion Act of Sindh, I believe. But we'll get into that in a
Yeah.
bit.
So, one of the key challenges in addressing this issue is the lack of reliable data. Many cases of forced conversions go unreported due to fear of retaliation or social stigma. Families who do come forward often face significant legal and social hurdles, and the courts frequently side with the abductors. This creates a culture of impunity where the perpetrators feel emboldened to continue their actions. Islam being the state religion.
Straight religion.
State religion.
It likes to
Probably.
believe it's a straight religion.
religion. The officers in high positions, IG or SP, do cooperate.
So what is, sorry to interrupt, what is SP again? IG is Inspector General and SP is?
I think it's Superintendent of Police or something.
Okay.
I think like that.
Okay. Superintendent makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do co-op. So, I mean, this is what I was mentioning. So, but they have to go through the SHO, and when they are in, when they're in the
Mhm.
police station. And a lot of time, the cases gets dismissed during this time as these lower grade officers do not see anything wrong with the case and consider themselves as saviors of Islam and pride themselves in being involved in an infidel's route to Islam.
That's very interesting. I'm just going to tell a very irrelevant story to this,
Right.
but the idea of this using police connections as a way to intimidate women. Like, I remember when I was like literally in like 8th or 9th grade, and मैं all girls school में होती थी. But एक बंदा होता था, and he like liked me, I guess. I was like literally a child. I don't know. I mean, and he added, I don't know, he got my MSN or something.
Okay.
तब तो I think it was like MSN or Facebook.
Yeah,
Facebook होगा actually. And then he just said like, I like you, whatever. And I just said, I'm sorry, like, please don't talk to me again.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm very uncomfortable. Like, I'm literally like still like, very young. And he wasn't like that much older. Well, मेरी grade में था शायद एक grade आगे. But then he basically just threatened me by saying that my dad is the SHO of, the local police station. And,
Okay.
I'm basically going to just ruin your life now.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So,
So no, it's just the way that this is used.
okay,
These
this-
police
the
connections are used to
connections, yeah, yeah.
intimidate and abuse women in
Right, right.
Pakistan.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, तुम जानते हो मेरा बाप कौन है? Like,
Yeah.
ये लड़के लड़कियों के साथ भी करते हैं, that's what's
Fucked up, yeah.
incredibly, fucked up.
Some of these captors are also influential and powerful women, powerful men,
Women.
powerful men. Like, of course,
Freudian slip.
Freudian. I mean, that's, yeah. So, who, according to Professor Jürgen Schaflechner,
Oh, once again, Jürgen Schaflechner. Very nice.
used the guise of conversion to cover up sexual assaults and harassment. This makes it even more difficult for the police to intervene, as they are often bribed by these upper class and influential men.
So, like you were saying, they are in all cases predators.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Some scholars also argue that because with the migration of Sindhi Hindus, an inflow of other ethnic groups in Sindh will create demographic changes, converting ethnic Sindhis into permanent minorities in their own historic land.
Wow.
So that's the point of, like, I mean, again, like, weird example, but like what this, who's that designer? I forgot his name.
Deepak Parwani?
Deepak Parwani.
Yeah.
So he went like, I don't think of myself as a minority. I've been living on this land for like, I don't know, like 5,000 years, whatever it is, like, so it's like you guys who came here, like, to Sindh, you are the minority.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like, I've been like, because the definition of minority over there is like, different.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And Sindh
so-
wasn't directly colonized by the British, right?
no, it was.
Oh, okay.
It
My
was.
bad.
this-
But
yeah,
later.
but later, yeah. it
Later,
was
right.
later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was in, Talpurs were ruling it,
Mhm.
and that's from whom the British took over, kind
Mhm.
of.
Okay.
So, but yeah, like the Hindu community was kind of like the focal point of like Sindh, and they were the people who were the most, like, sort of the most, like, people with the most money over there. And that's also, I mean, we can say that was also like, what overall in India, like, Muslims were feeling that, the Hindus were getting better than Muslims, and for which they sort of friend the Muslim, like, this Muslim nation, like, whatever, like, movement.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure, like, people like, that movie we saw, like chess players.
Right.
I'm sure, like, people like,
Satyajit Ray. And
yeah. And the people who were playing chess, I think people like them would have been leading. I mean, we know, like, people like, Jinnah and like Iqbal were like leading it, but behind it, it was just like, like people who were just like, saying that we were such a big thing, like, now we should have our own land and stuff. So I'm that's just my theory. I wasn't like staying there.
No, it's definitely an interesting theory. Some food for thought.
Yeah, Pakistan जैसे like वो कहते हैं अलीगढ़ की लौंडों की साजिश.
Sazish.
शरारत.
Shararat.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That's funny. Yeah. Thank you for the reference.
reference.
Yes. All right. Well, that was, we took a little bit of a history lesson. So let's go back to the present. And right, so as I was mentioning earlier, there was an act, and it's the existing law is it's called the Child Marriage Restraint Act and the Sindh Child Marriage Restraint Act, which both have raised the legal minimum age of marriage to 18. And it also means pushing for new legislation that criminalizes, the thing that we should aim for is pushing for new legislation that criminalizes forced conversions and provides support and protection for the victims.
Education and community outreach are also essential in changing societal attitudes and reducing the stigma associated with reporting these crimes. By working with local communities, religious leaders, and civil society organizations, we can create a more supportive environment for the victims and their families.
And the media also plays a crucial role in raising awareness and holding the government accountable. By highlighting these stories and giving a voice to the victims, journalists can help to shine a light on this issue and push for meaningful change. Hopefully.
Forced conversions in Pakistan are a grave violation of human rights.
Full stop.
Along with other injustices against Hindus in Sindh, such as kidnapping for ransom, this heinous treatment of Pakistan's Hindus results in them having no choice but to abandon their indigenous homeland.
That's a crime, honestly.
It's crucial that we continue to raise awareness and advocate for the protection of these vulnerable communities and prioritize their safety.
Thank you for joining us on Armpit Intellectuals.
Until next time, stay informed
And stay engaged.